Hello everybody, what the flick? We are here with our review, a proper review of the first episode of American Gods and the second episode of American Gods. Last week we had the creators of the show on to talk about the project. Now we're just gonna review the show and tell you whether or not it's any good. I'm William Bibbiani, Meredith Placko, and this guy.
Tim Frisch.
Tim Frisch.
Tim Frisch.
I always forget his last name. I'm a jerk. So this is one of the most talked about shows of the year. And Brian Fuller and Michael Green are very striking storytellers. For better or worse, what do you think? Just in general, how do you feel? General impression.
Gripped. Now I'm a book reader. I've read the first American Gods book, so I know what happens. So I'm already like I don't know what to compare the show to, but I'm really enjoying like how they're presenting it to me.
Yeah.
And fortunately I read the book like 10 years or so I forgot the details. I just remember the broad strokes of what happens. So far it's surprised me, which I didn't think it would be able to do. Huh. And it has, it's visually stunning. It's really good to look at. It's got parts of it that I think rely a little bit too heavy on, we're about to have a dream sequence. but I like the story as it's told outside of the main story. The sub-characters we've gotten so far, the little historical vignettes that come with the scripted writing at the beginning.
Meredith, there's a bit in the second episode where Mr. Wednesday says, he's easing Shadow Moon into it. Is that how it feels to someone who hasn't read the book?
Yeah, and this is gonna come as a shock because everyone who knows me would be like, why have you not read this? And I'm like, it's, just never had the chance. But coming to it as a completely new audience member, I'm enraptured. Like I tend to not be the biggest fan of Neil Gaiman's work. I think he's a fantastic human being. It's just his writing has never spoken to me, but the way that this has been presented is what I want out of television.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm having a great time just knowing what's going on, kind of feeling the thrill of everything as it is being exposed. I will say my boyfriend has the opposite. He's already like, I'm gonna give it one more episode and then I'm gonna quit because he feels like it's not enough is being handed to him, and I don't want to know everything. I like how it's being uncovered.
It's not supernatural. It's not God of the Week as we travel across country. But what I do think is working very effectively, and I think what they have found in the book, I've read it as well, that makes it work even though it's very unconventionally structured, is it is a travel log. This is traveling across the United States, and road trip movies and road trip TV shows are often very, very effective. And it's just a matter of getting from one tale to the next, getting from one interesting side note, interesting culture, interesting character who lives and fills out this fantastic country of ours. The other thing I think is interesting because Shadow Moon, he doesn't know exactly what's happening yet. He's kind of going with the flow because he's got nothing else.
Which I find is the weirdest part so far, is that he's definitely going with the flow.
Yeah.
I think there are a dozen opportunities for saying, you know what, I'm out. I don't care about coin flips. I don't care about checkers games. I'm out. I'm out.
Enough weird, unexplainable things have happened to this man, and he's just like, did being in prison ruin, did just condition you to just want this really fantastical adventure?
I don't know if it's about being in prison making you want a fantastical adventure, but I think the way that his character begins this story, he has been taken out of the world for a long time. He has been released into it, and everything he had hoped for, everything he had prayed for when he got out is stripped away. So he's working with this blank slate, and it looks like he just doesn't care what's filling it.
Yeah.
And that could be frustrating. And honestly, the first episode was a little bit where I kind of, even though I've read the book, kind of wanted it to get on with it because American Gods, even the book, is in no rush whatsoever to get anywhere. But by the second episode, we have, again, we're on the road, we're meeting different characters, and we're also, when everything Shadow Moon is up to is either something he can write off as like a real thing that happened and maybe he interpreted it strange, or maybe he's mad with grief, his wife did just die. But what they're doing a really, really good job of is taking it out of his perspective long enough to sell you the fantastic. You know the fantastic is going on because Wednesday, blows a piece of pollen out and it becomes lightning. And that creates this contrast between the mundane, which is what a lot of these gods are doing. We made a lot of gods in episode 2 that are forced to have day jobs. And how much does that suck, And the absolutely incredible. And I think they're doing a very interesting job of combining that. I know. Yeah. So what about, so the first episode, again, we're just meeting Shadow Moon, we're meeting Wednesday, and we get this finale that is, I wish I had actually talked about it with Brian Fuller and Michael Green when they were here, but it's a lynching. It is a bunch of faceless white people lynching a person of color and getting horribly mutilated for it. And you know, I think we're okay.
Like over the top Tarantino.
Yeah, it was
blood and guts mutilated.
This is a show that, and then the next bit, episode 2, is all about race in America and the slave trade and its legacy. This is a show that's incredibly confrontational. And I'm curious what your responses are to this sort of confrontation and whether or not you think it's serving the story or whether you think it is, I don't know, didactic maybe, I don't know, what do you think?
I mean, personally, I find it to be one of the more gripping and realistic tales I've seen of this. Yeah, I think it's, you know, a lot of America's history, especially when it comes to the slave trade and racism, is color-coded, especially when I think about what we learned in high school versus what I learned in college and what I learned on my own. And I think to see it put so brutally forth like this, I mean, it puts me right in the mindset of what this show is about and what it should be about. It's a critique on America. You know, I don't see it as, you know, gods waging war, the new gods and the old waging war. I read this as like, or see this as like, this is, America is bloody and ugly and we do terrible things even to this day. And to see it so put forth in such a visceral way, I think it doesn't take away from the show. In fact, it only enhances it for me. Yeah,
and to have gods thrown in as well, it's inextricably related to our relation to religion as well, which I think is very daring. And I think not everyone's gonna be necessarily happy with putting that forth. I've seen some people respond very negatively to the politics of it offhand, just because they don't necessarily want to be confronted with it right now. This is a fantasy story.
I'm comparing it in my mind already to Preacher and where we left off with that show and how that deals with religion and gods and the supernatural as a real and tangible thing in front of you. And I like that it's a different angle. It feels familiar, but at the same time, I think they're pushing it further and taking it in a more, you know, magical realism direction, which I'm grooving on so far.
Yeah, you know, we have a more secular perspective on religion, even religion itself. If you have a religion, you know, we used to have this sense that the gods were literally around us all the time, and now gods, even in many religious people, they're seen as maybe a bit more metaphoric, maybe a little less literal. And we have, again, we meet Chernabog and the sisters in the end of episode 2, and they're talking about how I have to cook. We had servants. You know, Bilquis actually goes to a museum and looks at all of the regalia that used to be there to worship her, and it's very bittersweet. And yeah, I think it's just interesting like seeing like a society abandon these gods, and the gods seem eager to rise up again. And what will that do?
And they haven't like sort of laid out all the rules for godhood yet. So far, what we've seen is mostly just parlor tricks from the gods. But you know there's more power there. You know there's more influence there. You know that there's this history to them that has a deeper meaning for them and for us, but we haven't seen it yet. Because they do have to cook. They do need jobs. And that's weird to me to think that this all-powerful being plays by our rules.
Well, they do have their own rules, and again, we've read the book, and I don't think it's spoiling anything to say that the older gods aren't as powerful as the newer gods right now.
And that's something I was going to bring up, is that, you know, generally, and I think of stories like this, and I wonder if this goes in the same vein, is their power waning because the belief in them isn't as strong, and that's why these new gods have exceptionally more power because people, you know, actively believe in them.
How incredible is Gillian Anderson?
Right, that was a great cameo.
As Lucille Ball as a god.
Yes.
And she has a great speech actually, where she talks about people worshiping at the screen. The screen is an altar. We have a screen in front of us right now as you look at us on a screen.
So do you.
Yeah.
And in fact, many of you, and there's a great bit, and I had to put down my phone when Gillian Anderson said this, like, we have screens in our hands to distract us when the screens on the wall get boring. That's how much we are worshiping at the mantle of media.
And right worship in this sense is attention. It's focus from our lives to their altar, as you put it.
Yeah, it is greater than us. It is something that we need and feel like is vital to our existence, and we make sacrifices for it.
Yes.
You know, Sense8 is a show that had a bit last season about how people who are poor sometimes spend more money on a big screen TV. Why? Because it makes you feel like you have more money. Like because it makes you feel like it's a window to another reality. It's a thing. It's a thing that gives you comfort.
You're not sacrificing a lamb at the altar, but you still are putting forth, you know, a boon to have these things. And that's, I don't know, like I've thought a lot about the ideas that American Gods is put forth, just me as an individual and working in this day and age, and I just find it like, how timely is all this? And I'm wondering, now I want to go back and read the books. I want to know how much they've updated, because obviously 15 years is a bit, or 10 years. So,
I read it recently. It still reads real well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, some things have been updated a bit. Yeah. And the way media has evolved, I don't think even Neil Gaiman could have predicted. But
yeah, because I assume Technology Boy has been updated quite a bit.
A little, but so far not really? As much as you might think.
And it was prescient at the time. Like, it knew the direction we were going, and we definitely headed in that direction. Smartphones, televisions, technology, and our reliance on them.
And we're going to meet other gods in the future who are even more ingrained in what we consider our technological and media culture, I think. That's been announced. People have done interviews and everything.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the whole roster of posters.
Yeah, so. Crispin Glover will be around, and it will. I'm very confident that he'll be fun. Is this the most dynamic checkers game we've ever seen in a movie or a TV show?
Yeah, in the sense that they say it right away, is that like everyone's obsessed with chess because there's so much strategy, but I mean, checkers has its charms too. All the pieces are equal until one is graduated to a king.
Yeah, but that's true. So we have here, the episode concludes with a checkers game for the life of Shadow Moon, and he loses hard. It's not good, and I'm curious. I know where this is going. You know where this is going. How do you feel about this? Like, this is a cliffhanger?
I was kind of like, are we gonna kill off the main character in episode 3? Like, how does this? I don't like. It would be a brave move because again, I don't know if Shadow Moon is ultimately the main character. I don't. Maybe it is Mr. Wednesday. I mean, I love Ian McShane, so he can carry anything. But I as a viewer and new to this, I do not know what's gonna happen. I am actually on the edge of my seat, wondering, are they going to kill him? But then again, being gods, can they bring him back?
And Emily Browning has what, second billing in the show, and she dies in the first episode. So,
well, we have her back in a dream sequence, so we'll see her a bit. There will be more to come.
Yeah, but I think there's more. I think there's more to it. He put the gold, or that gold coin into her grave that he got from basically the leprechaun, and I'm wondering.
Mad McSweeney.
Yeah, McSweeney, and I'm wondering if there's more to that because he said it was a magic gold coin. So
yeah.
What can come? Like, I don't know. I'm suspicious. I don't trust anything, and I believe anything's possible.
One of the tricks with the show is that, again, it's slow paced enough. It's not based on incident and action. It's based off of, there's forward momentum, but it's very conversational. It gives you a lot of time to think about stuff like that. It's almost like reading a novel right now, and that you're poring over a chapter and you can think to yourself, that name sounds familiar. I wonder if he'll be important later. Or, oh, a gold coin that he put on the thing and then something magical happened. I wonder if that's important. And
yeah, I love the pacing. It's so good.
That said, is this show gonna give us all the answers to the questions that we have? Are we gonna figure out what the deal is with all the weird stuff we've seen? Or is it just weird stuff for the sake of setting the world?
And this is a question I asked them, the showrunners, when they're on the show last week, and obviously they didn't want to give too much away, but American Gods is an odd novel from a structural and plot perspective. It really is not afraid to digress in the characters' lives a very long time. There is a potential that I was very concerned about, that this show could lose forward momentum after a while, that it will no longer have a very clear direction, and it could potentially meander. Now, right now, we're still in this wonderful and fragrant fog of learning and discovering new corners of the world, but how long can that last? And at what point do we need the action to pick up? Or no matter how much we're digging it, will we say, we need it to move forward now? Because that's something that also happened with Hannibal. I think some people got a little tired with
especially
Hannibal.
by season 3.
Yeah, people were just like, get on with it a little bit. Like, it's a sort of thing where you can totally get intoxicated and you can be impatient at the same time.
I don't know. I mean, Shadow Moon potentially losing his life over a checkers match is moving the story forward. I mean, I don't know how much you can ask for that unless they like drag that over 7 episodes and they just keep playing a checkers match. I don't know.
Did anyone else pick up that Chernobog's speech about hitting cows over the head with a hammer, that this is a good way to kill and that anyone can do it now? Anyone else pick up that that's basically the hitchhiker's speech in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
No.
Yeah. I don't know if that's just
I mean, it's a commentary on maybe the industrial complex and how there used to be skilled workers necessary, and now these days everything is automated, and that anybody can do press a button on an assembly line when it used to like take a skill and a strength and an apprenticeship. And
well, he talks about how like the meat gets on your table somehow.
Yeah,
we take it for granted, and yet there was something ceremonial about the way we used to have to slaughter a cow. Slaughtering a cow is a very old sacrifice to a god. That's been going on for millennia. And now it's just rote.
Yeah.
Done. Sad. Yeah. What are you gonna do? But Chernobog is an old god. And he took pride in that ritual.
Yeah.
And I think it's a matter of also we're losing rituals. We're losing that element of our society, and the new gods that we have seen so far are gods of distractions. They're not necessarily gods of productivity.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's in and of itself is a commentary that was built into the book.
Yeah.
So we're digging it so far, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about the pacing and how if it was going to be too slow for us, or if it was going to, take steps towards the ultimate plot. And I think it's going to be made or broken on the sub characters from the book, because there's a ton of them. We've met a couple already: Mad McSweeney, Bilquis, and
Anansi.
Right?
Anansi.
So either the show doubles down on fleshing those characters out, or it plucks the fat out of them to move the story along faster, because it's a long book.
Yeah.
So we're either going to be entertained by these characters, or they're going to be ships in the night, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we get more Mr. Nancy. I really liked him. He was so good.
Okay, so Orlando Jones used to be was he like a Mountain Dew spokesman? Like, is that most people
Make
remember?
7 Up yours.
It was 7 Up. It was 7 Up. So, and he was a perfectly good 7 Up salesman. And then it followed him for a bit. He would appear in some movies, and everyone would be like, "Oh, it's a 7 Up guy," no matter how seriously you wanted to take him. And then he just comes out, beginning of episode 2, with maybe the best monologue writing, monologue delivery, monologue purpose thematically in terms of plot.
And this show's had a couple other good monologues.
Oh yeah. No, but this is like all timer. This is like one of the best scenes in a television series I've seen in a really long time. Like,
he has the potential to be a huge character in the show.
Oh,
yeah.
He's got a whole other book full of content.
Yes, he does.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Anansi Boys, yeah.
Oh, good.
It's all
that
about
makes
his
me
kids.
really happy.
Yeah, it's a good book.
So cool.
But it's an odd book because it doesn't really like, it connects, but it's very tangential. Like, it's not really like.
It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, it's just a side story.
It just exists in the same world, which I'm always
it's
for
practically
that.
a different genre. It's a really, really fun though. But I cannot wait to see him more. And I hope as the show grows and as we start meeting these characters and as we start actually spending some time with them, the show gets the freedom to sort of delve into them more and give them more screen time and give them more adventures. Because if they're gonna come to life with this much vitality, I want more.
Definitely. I can't wait for Kristen Chenoweth to appear, and she better sing. If she doesn't sing, I'm gonna be really upset.
Why cast Kristen Chenoweth and not let her sing?
Exactly.
I know. It's absurd.
I know.
It's like casting Ricky Jay and asking him not to do a card trick. What's the point? So American Gods, we're digging it. We hope you're digging it too. We'll be back next week. Hopefully Alonso Duralde will be back with us then. American Gods, fun.